Hi, everyone. Tonight, I wanted to talk about some authors and works that influenced Shakespeare. Works or authors that were inspirations or sources for his plays. So this won't be a deep dive into where you can find these works or how they influence him exactly per se, but we'll just kind of do a brief discussion on each one here. So the first one I'd like to mention is Raphael Holinshed's Chronicles of English History. So this is a nonfiction work that Holinshed wrote. I think over time scholars have found some elements to be fictitious or mythic, but it was intended as a work of nonfiction. Of course, Shakespeare would have gotten a lot of his source material from Holinshed's English history for his English history plays, but also King Lear, Macbeth, and Cymbeline. Another one would have been Plutarch's Lives or Plutarch's Parallel Lives, and more specifically, Thomas North's translation of Plutarch's Lives. And the interesting thing about Plutarch's Lives, and let me take a step back, he would have gotten particularly his Roman plays, Coriolanus, Julius Caesar, Antony, and Cleopatra. He would have gotten information and used Plutarch's Lives as source material for those plays. And in Plutarch's Lives, what Plutarch does is he compares Greek statesmen, Greek politician, Greek generals with Roman statesmen, politicians, and generals, and he writes about their virtues and their vices. And so perhaps Shakespeare got his idea to really to write about virtue, the qualities of virtue, the qualities of vice, and to put those into his characters and to mention those qualities in his plays. Kind of another contemporary of Shakespeare would have been Michel de Montaigne, a French writer, and we all know him for his essays, Montaigne's essays. Shakespeare definitely read Montaigne's essays, and there are some allusions to Montaigne's essays or direct references to Montaigne's essays. So those were three contemporary works: Raphael Holinshed's Chronicles of English History, Thomas North's translation of Parallel Lives or Plutarch's Lives, and Montaigne's essays that Shakespeare would have used in his plays. Now, there is some conjecture that Shakespeare did know Dante. The Divine Comedy was not translated into English, I don't believe, until the 18th or early 19th century. But I do believe the Shakespeare writer knew Italian, knew it well, and so probably would have read Dante's Divine Comedy in the original language, Florentine Italian. In Hamlet, Polonius makes a reference to Seneca and Plautus. Seneca would have been a Roman playwright. He did have a work of satire, but he wrote a lot of tragedies that had violent elements and supernatural elements. So those two things could have definitely influenced Shakespeare. Plautus was the comedic writer. I think some people have compared the Comedy of Errors, with Menaechmi, a comedy by Plautus. So another influence would have been Horus, another Roman writer. So I think although Shakespeare knew both the Greek and Roman writers well, I think he had a preference for the Roman writers. So Horace's odes, that would have been an influence. I think it's been mentioned that Horus has an ode to Cleopatra, and that Horus's ode was kind of the, not great length, obviously. So, but I think it was kind of a spark to inspire Shakespeare to write a well-rounded picture of Cleopatra in Antony and Cleopatra. Escalus and his Oresteia. That's a trilogy. Essentially, it's about Orestes' revenge on his mother for killing his father, Agamemnon. His mother is Clytemnestra. So it's a trilogy. I believe the first one is called Agamemnon. The first play is called Agamemnon. Excuse me. The second one is the Libation Bearers, and the third one is the Eumenides. So that we definitely have the revenge element within that, and that trilogy of plays. I think also about taking on vigilante justice versus true regular justice, meaning justice in the courts. Another Greek obviously would have been Homer. The Iliad and the Odyssey were definitely inspirations for Shakespeare. There was kind of an intermediary. I believe he used Chaucer's Troilus and Cresside as an influence in writing his Troilus and Cressida and Shakespeare's Troilus and Cressida, along with John Gower. John Gower was another medieval English writer, poet, who wrote about Polonius of Tyre, and this would have been the influence for Pericles of Tyre. And then we have the Holy Bible. Shakespeare would have used the Geneva Bible. The King James Bible was not published until 1611, so Shakespeare would have used the Geneva Bible. There are many allusions to the Bible throughout all of Shakespeare's works, so that was definitely a heavy influence. I think the two writers that influenced Shakespeare the most are Virgil and Ovid. Virgil's Aeneid is definitely referenced many times throughout the Shakespeare works. So Virgil's Aeneid is definitely a huge influence. And I think the writer and work that influenced him the most, maybe with the exception of the Bible, is Ovid's Metamorphoses. I think Ovid was his favorite writer. I think there's some debate whether it is Ovid or Virgil, but I think it's Ovid. Ovid's Metamorphoses would have been source material or inspiration for many themes, plots, characters throughout Shakespeare's plays. So those are just some of my thoughts on his major influences. I'm sure I've missed some. Please let me know who I missed, either which author or which work I might have missed that greatly influenced Shakespeare's plays. Thank you.